Thank you, band. Go ahead and grab a seat, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and just run us through a couple quick announcements. First off, welcome. We're so glad you're here this morning. If you haven't already, we encourage you, if you'd like to get more connected, to fill out our Connect card. Those are under your seat if you'd like, or you can do it online at h2otoledo.org, or you can scan this fancy QR code right here. We talk about this every week, but if you haven't already, we'd love for you to join us at our life groups, especially for this week. This is an awesome time to jump in, invite a friend, because this week, all of our life groups are going to be doing something very special. We're going to be doing Operation Christmas Child this week. And if you don't know what Operation Christmas Child is, basically, we all come together, we get a couple bucks, we go to the dollar store, and we fill shoe boxes up with toys and necessities that other people need in third world countries or places that just need it in general. So it's a great opportunity to give generously, to love people that we may probably never meet in person, and give them an opportunity to have a Christmas and also hear about who Jesus is. Speaking of generosity, if you call H2O your church home and you would like to worship in this way, you can give in person in the back at the welcome table, or you can give online at h2otoledo.org. And we have two special announcements this morning. First is we have Cohort tonight. What is Cohort? If you are someone who has completed the well, doesn't matter when, but this is a time where we gather as leaders and members of H2O, where we get to kind of serve you guys we get to talk about your life, but also we get to talk about where our church is at, where we're going, and how we want to keep living missionally to love God and love Rockets. So that's going to be tonight at 6:30 p.m. in the library in room 2003. So if you know where the Starbucks is, it's behind like the glass walls there on the right. And lastly, this might be a little further ahead thinking than you may like, but we'd like you to start thinking about your spring break and how you would like to spend it. Because next week, we're going to have announcements and details on what spring break mission trip we're going to be doing here at H2O. We haven't done mission trips in almost 2 years. We snuck in right before COVID became a thing, but we're excited to talk about that, and we'll have more details with that next week. So go ahead, look at your schedules when you get the chance and be thinking about that. But for right now, go ahead and stand up and say hi to someone around you. Meet somebody new as Matt comes up and we get to hear him.
Nice. So glad to see you guys here this morning. I know it's weird to be talking about spring break while it's snowing outside. Boo to snow for all those people that don't like snow.
Boo you.
Yes, boo me. Boo me. I'm okay with that. All right, my name is Matt Olszewski. I am one of the pastors here at H2O, and I am pumped about talking about the topic that we are going to be talking about this morning. So we've been in this series called Questions the whole semester, where we're looking at questions within the Bible that people were asking or God was asking, and that was fun. But we have now transitioned. As of last week, we've transitioned into a part of the series where you guys submitted the questions. All of you submitted questions that you had about the Bible, about faith, just about what it means to be a Christian, or what it looks like to just live a life as a Christian. And I think the most popular questions that we received were about dating. Okay, and so we're going to be talking about dating this morning, right? Everybody's thinking about it, or everybody's not thinking about it. There's usually not anyone in between. It's kind of like you're either thinking about it a lot or you're not thinking about it at all. And so I'm pumped about talking about it this morning, not because I'm an expert. I have many mistakes that I have made throughout my life, but I think as I've gotten older, and I'm not in the dating game anymore, and I've been able to work with students for almost 20 years, I've gotten an outsider's perspective to see where students are having success in their dating and areas where they're really, really struggling, or they're making some of the mistakes that I made. And so I've had age, wisdom, and so I even grew out my old man beard for this talk this morning, so you can see that I have gray in it and that I'm definitely old, and I have lived life a little bit, okay? especially in the dating world. And so I'm just going to warn you, this morning's talk might be a little bit longer, okay? But I think this is an important topic, and we got one person clapping, okay? The one guy that's engaged, he's like, I don't have to do this anymore, but we're going to clap at it anyways. It's going to be a little bit longer. I hope it's challenging. I hope we have some laughs along the way. And so we're going to get into this. Here's the two questions that were asked. Why is having a relationship with someone of the same faith essential to success as a Christian? And then the other question was best dating advice for girls and guys who want to date God's way. And so I just kind of simplified this into two different categories. The first question was really just asking who to date, who should I date? And then the second question was really just asking how to date. Like, how can I do this well? And so those are the areas that we're really going to be looking at this morning. But I know that those questions can come off a little too simple to some of you. You're just thinking, dating today seems a little bit more confusing than these two questions. It becomes a little bit more nuanced and unclear. And so I'm purposely trying to simplify it for that reason, because dating has become very complicated. There are things like the language that we use today can become confusing, and we're going to talk through the different types of labels that we maybe have for our relationships. There's new ways to find a date. We have technology on our side. We have apps. We have online, and we're not going to cover that this morning. I would love to someday. I think it's really important for us to talk through. We're not going to talk about it because I'm opposed to it. I'm not that old, okay? We just don't have time to cover everything. But I'd love to have a conversation about online dating apps. And so I can understand with all the confusion of how we've kind of contorted dating into what it is, I can understand why people are left frustrated with the experiences that you have had or the lack of experiences that you have had. And so I want to start with this, and you're going to hear me say this, I think, a couple times throughout this talk. Here's two quotes that I want you to hear. Dating is not a status we sit in, but it is a process we move through. And that's by a guy named Ben Stewart. If you're looking for more dating resources, look up Ben Stewart. He's got books. Just YouTube Ben Stewart. Dating talks will definitely come up. And then the second, if I had to rephrase kind of what Ben is saying, this is me saying this, dating is an evaluation period, not a permanent hire, until you both decide to permanently fire or hire one another. Okay, that seems kind of like straightforward and maybe kind of takes the romance out of the relationship. But this is one big, long job interview, okay? That's what I see relationships to be. And here's why these quotes are so important. Because many times in our relationships, being a boyfriend or a girlfriend becomes more important. The status of being a boyfriend or a girlfriend becomes more important than actually evaluating how the relationship is going. You just become very comfortable with, I'm so happy that I get to say that I have a girlfriend. I'm so happy that I get to say that I have a boyfriend. And it all becomes about the status. And then in many relationships that I see, especially within the church, not just H2O. I'm not calling anybody out this morning. This is just what I've seen over my years. I see couples acting like they're already married. They're no longer evaluating anything. They've just become so intertwined that it's as if they are already married. But the whole point of dating is to move through this process to see if we would actually want to marry the person that we are with. It's not just a casual relationship, but it also is not marriage at the same time. Okay, some of you have even gotten in this out of these relationships for this very reason, that sometimes they seem way too casual, and you start asking yourself, do you ever think about me? Do you ever want to talk to me? Do you ever remember that I exist? Like, there's some of you that have been in relationships where you have felt, I'm not sure if I'm actually a priority. And then some of you have been in the relationships where it's like you went to sleep one night and somehow a wedding ceremony happened and you woke up and the relationship was like real serious, really fast. And everything that you did almost looked like you were married. And so I want to liken relationships to tater tots. Okay? Who here likes tater tots? Does anybody like tater tots? Are so good, guys, okay? But tater tots are really hard to get right. Okay? If you're just too casual about cooking your tater tots and you open the oven and you kind of see how they are and they're still kind of mushy and you're like, it's fine, whatever, I'll just eat mushy tater tots. Like, that's not the kind of tater tot you want to eat. That's not the kind of relationship that you want. I guess this is just what I have. Or some of you don't pay enough attention to your tater tots and you just forget that they're there and they get burnt, and then they're too crispy, okay? They're not salvageable. You can't put enough ketchup on these things to fix it, all right? This is a very grim kind of outlook on relationships. But we're looking for the perfect tater tot in relationships, okay, guys? Where you open the oven multiple times to make sure, all right, where are they at? Are they crispy? Are they perfect like I want them? We want the perfect tater tot of relationships. Okay, we're going to move on to the first question. All right, who to date? Who to date? And we're going to move through 3 C's of who to date. There's going to be 3 words that start with C that are going to be imperative and so important for you guys to navigate and decide who to date. The first C should be no surprise. It is the answer that every person would give in youth group: Christ, Jesus, okay? We're going to start with Christ. Listen, Jesus wants everything about you. He wants every part of your life. He wants every detail, every decision, everything that you do is centered in your relationship with Christ. And if you are looking for someone to date, then you want someone that is also going to have that desire that Jesus is going to be the center of everything who they are and everything about your relationship coming together. That Jesus is part of it. And so if you get into a dating relationship and the other person wants really nothing to do with Jesus at all, or they are going to just casually follow Jesus, then you want nothing to do with that person in that relationship. Because just like our relationships with each other, when we're trying to find who we want to date, those are not casual. Neither is our relationship with Jesus. It's not a casual pursuit. It's an endeavor and a journey that you work on. And you're always looking towards Jesus. It's like a team. If you were to put a team together, and that team of 2 has different ideas about how to be successful. You're putting 2 different people together that has different ideas of how to be successful, and they cannot perform the task that's set before them. Instead of working together, they're going to be at odds with one another. And so if you would call yourself a Christian this morning, I implore you, I encourage you, I challenge you to date someone that is going to have that same relationship with Jesus. Right? I just told you, this is a journey that you're on together. You're hand in hand, and you're going down this road. Imagine being in a relationship with someone while you're driving down the road, and the destination, and this sounds weird, the destination is Jesus, and you're driving down the road, and the other person that you're with always wants to get off an exit that isn't going towards that destination. They have different ideas of what maybe should happen in the relationship. They have different ideas of how Jesus forms our lives and makes everything about us. And so it needs to start with Christ. It needs to start with, is the person that I'm interested in, are they serious about Jesus? I'm not concerned about how much they know about Jesus. I'm not concerned so much as how exactly, how long they've been following Jesus. It's all about, are they actually serious about following Jesus? So Jesus said this, and we're actually going to talk more about this next week. He said, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. This is a statement that Jesus made. If we believe as Christians, those of us who follow him, if we believe that Jesus is the way, that he is the roadmap to life, that he is the truth, that everything that he has said and everything that he has said about us is true, and that everything about life, everything that encompasses what we see in this world and how we should know and relate to other people and relate to the love that God has for us, if all of that is true, we want someone else that identifies and says, yeah, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. So when you're looking for someone to date, your very first question should be, and with no compromise, it should be, do they know Jesus? And do they want to journey with me towards him? Do they know Jesus, and do they want to journey with me towards him? So that's the first C, Christ. The second one is character. Character. Now, let me just say, I think this is where I really thrived. If I thrived in any area of dating, this is where I feel like I killed it. I'm just a naturally curious person. I love to make observations. And so I was constantly asking myself some general questions, but then even more specific questions when I was dating my then girlfriend, now wife, Gretchen. I was asking questions like, who is this person that I'm dating? What are they like? Are they mature? Because if they are mature and they're growing and they're serious about knowing who Jesus is, you're going to see them continue to grow in certain areas of their life. It's going to be amazing to see, and you have to be observing those things when you are in a relationship. So I actually want to go through some specific questions that would be, I think, really valuable for all of you to consider, either when you're considered dating someone or when you are in a relationship with them. We're going to go pretty fast here. So, how do they treat their friends? That is the number one thing I wanted to know about Gretchen. When I'm with her, and when I was around her good friends, how did she treat them? Did she have close, healthy friendships? Or was she in constant drama with her friends? Okay? If you hear lots of stories about how they have consistent conflict with friends or roommates, and it's always the other people's fault, something should pop up and say, that's a bad sign, right? You should think to yourself, who's the common denominator in this story? And whose fault is it always? You have to know how they treat their friends. Okay, second question. Do they have refreshing friendships apart from you? You're going to notice a lot of these questions have to deal with friendship. And that's purposeful. Friendship leads to relationship. So, do they have refreshing relationships, friendships, apart from you? Are you their only friend? That is a very important question, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. How do they handle tough situations? How is their mental health, and how do they take responsibility for it? Okay? Here's the truth about all of us, is that we all have tough situations in life, and I'd say many of us in this room, we've all dealt with mental health struggles in some form. However, one of the biggest mistakes that I see college students making is they get sucked into becoming the primary emotional caregiver for the person that they're dating. The person that they're dating is struggling with something. The person that they are dating is dealing with mental health issues, which is totally okay. But somehow the other person becomes their primary emotional caregiver. Listen to me on this, okay? You are not married yet. You're not married yet. You do not need to take on that responsibility. Even when you are married, you vow to take care of them in sickness and in health, but it is not your primary responsibility to make sure that their emotional health is always the healthiest. You are not the primary helper. And so in a dating relationship, you cannot take on that responsibility. I've seen it so many times. So many times. There has to be a boundary. Okay, next question. If they don't know some of my friends, your friends, how well do they relate to them when I introduce them? Are they even interested in my friends? Okay, this is where I'm talking about, and we're going to get into this a little bit more. When couples isolate themselves, it becomes all about them, and there's nobody on the outside. Friends disappear, your friends disappear, the other person isn't interested in meeting your friends if they didn't know each other in the first place. You had friends before you started dating, and you are going to need your friends throughout that relationship. Again, we'll talk more about that. Do they push me as a person while encouraging me? Is the person that I'm with pushing me and challenging me to be a better woman, a better man? And do they encourage me in that? Do they encourage me in that? So a couple weeks ago, I got to have a Zoom conversation with some former students of ours. We just wanted to catch up and kind of see where they were at in life. I did their wedding, and they've been in the professional world for a couple years now. And they wanted to get us up to date on a really cool opportunity the husband had. Just a job opportunity that he is looking forward to and that they're thinking about and they're praying about. And what was so incredible, and I know that was on a screen, it wasn't in person, is that while he was describing this opportunity, kind of like a dream job that he's always wanted, I was looking at his wife, and she was just so attentive and just smiling for him. She was so excited. And I could tell that she was just looking at him with admiration. She was looking at him with support and love. And I told her after that, I said, it was awesome to see how you just looked at your husband while he shared about this really cool opportunity that he may have coming up in the future. This is the kind of person that you want to be with, someone that is going to push you as a person and then encourage you. Next question. How do they handle the responsibilities that they have? You guys are all responsible for things. Some of you have jobs. All of you have school. How do they handle those responsibilities? Do they work hard? Or are they constantly finding reasons to be annoyed by those things? Not that those things aren't annoying. Jobs are very annoying at times. School is super annoying, okay? All right? You're allowed to be annoyed. But how do they push through the hard times and their responsibilities? Are they going to work hard through that? And then finally, I think this is a really important question. It may not be like first date question, but I think early on in your relationship, asking them, define love. What is love? What is love? And this is important because love, I think, has been lost for many, many years. Our understanding of what love is. I want to read to you a section of the Bible that gives a definition of love. It says, love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. And if you notice in that definition of love, there's no feeling involved in that whatsoever. It's all a choice and an action connected to that choice. Love is patient. You choose to be patient, and then you act patient towards someone. You want to know how someone is perceiving love. Because many relationships today, how they work out is, if I just don't feel something for you anymore, I have no reason to be with you anymore. And so when we're talking about dating, because we're talking about dating leads somewhere, right? We've talked about this. We hope that dating leads to marriage, and you're always evaluating that. If someone doesn't have the same definition of love or is going to be committed to choosing love, you don't want to be in that relationship. You want to be with someone that understands that love is hard work, and it's not dominated by how we feel. All right, finally, the third C word that we're going to talk about is chemistry. Chemistry, okay? Now, too often, what we do with the word chemistry is that we turn it into another C word, and that word is checklist, okay? We have a checklist of what we want and what we don't want, and I'm probably going to speak against what maybe I have spoken in the past. We're allowed to change our minds, okay? So if any of you heard me give a dating talk in the past and I talked about checklists, just disregard it. I'm going to say something different this morning, okay? Settle down. I don't think anybody's worked up about that at all. Okay. So we go to all this trouble to make a checklist. I'm not saying checklists are bad. It's okay if you have one. We go to all this trouble to make a checklist of what we want and what we don't want. And then when the opportunity comes to maybe be in a relationship, that checklist cannot be thrown out so fast. Like, it's thrown out so quickly. Like, it's just gone. Okay? All right, ladies, I want to speak to you right now. And I'm speaking in generalities. Please, no one get mad at me. Okay? These are just general statements. This is what happens most of the time. Ladies, what I have seen over and over again is that you have an idea of what you want in a man. You have an idea of what you want in a person that you are going to date. And the first person that comes along that has any interest, you say, oh, yep, that'll do. Okay? The checklist goes out the window so quickly. And you know what? That comes from a good desire, because being desired is a good thing. Being wanted, being loved is a beautiful thing. So the intention behind it is not bad. It's beautiful. But sometimes we just so quickly jump into a relationship because the first person that came along said, I'm interested. I like you. And guys, for you, I'm sorry, we have to get past this. But at the top of most of our checklist is she hot? Okay? I'm not saying physical attraction has nothing to do with relationships. It's part of it. But we have to go a little bit deeper. We have to get a little bit deeper down the checklist. So at the top of my checklist, or what I thought was important, something that was really important to me when I was in college, is I was looking for someone that loved sports. Did they play sports? Did they watch sports? Like, that was something that I was really interested in. And so, you know what? My checklist ended up being, and it kind of got reoriented. I met Gretchen. She's into sports, okay? She just doesn't want to watch and play them all day, okay? And it was fine, because I reoriented my checklist. And my priorities changed. And I think our checklist should start and end with this. Do you enjoy spending time with the person that you are with? That's it. That's it. They could have completely different interests than you. They could have completely different things that you thought you were going to be important on your checklist, but then you were like, oh, this person is so interesting. And every time we're together, I love spending time with them. This is how it was with Gretchen. I love what we talked about when we got together. I loved our shared interests. I loved our different interests. We shared conversations about our future. Not our future together, about what we wanted in our future separately. And we talked about that because we wanted to know, do we want the same things? Do we desire the same things in life? And every time I was with her, I wanted to be with her even more. It didn't matter what my checklist was. My attraction to her grew the more time I spent with her. And so all the other aspects of my checklist kind of went out the window, because what I thought was important really wasn't all that important anymore. It just seemed trivial compared to how much fun I was having experiencing life with Gretchen. So do you just enjoy being with the person, and is that growing? Is that growing? Okay, so the 3 C's of who to date: Christ, character, chemistry. All right, we got to move on to the second: how to date. How to date. Okay, eliminate the rush. This is my first piece of wisdom. Eliminate the rush. So many of us are just way too rushed to get into a relationship. And I know that this goes against what everything that our society tells us, or maybe even how you feel. There is nothing wrong with being single. Absolutely nothing wrong with being single. You may not feel that. That may not be the predominant message, that it seems like there's something off or wrong with people that are single. There is nothing wrong with being single, not being in a relationship. And so there's no rush to get into a relationship. Take your time. Take your time and go through the evaluation process. But there's also nothing wrong with wanting to be in a relationship. We're wired for it. God created us to be in relationship with one another. It's just that marriage or dating someone is not the top of the mountaintop experience. Romantic love, there's different kinds of love in this world, guys. Romantic love is not at the top of the mountain. Relational friendship love is just as important as romantic love. That's not what we hear. That's not what we're told. That's not what everybody says, but it's true. And so I talked earlier about the questions that you should be asking yourself on who to date. But you should be turning those questions around on yourself. Am I the kind of person that I would want to date? That's a question that you need to be asking yourself. What is my maturity level? Am I able to care for, encourage, and wisely observe the other person that I'm in a relationship with? Don't just rush into a relationship because you want to, because you are sick of being alone. So when I was a freshman in college, I remember making a very distinct decision that I didn't want to be in a relationship anytime soon. And I just said I was going to take a break. This actually, it wasn't a promise that I made to God. It was just a decision that I made. And the reason I made it was because I knew that I had so much to learn about what it meant to care for another person beyond myself. I knew that there were maturity things in my life. I knew that there were things that I need to learn about Jesus and my pursuit of him. And so I just decided I'm not going to date anybody for the time being. Because I knew my next relationship had to be different. And in order for that relationship to be different, I needed to be different. We need to be different. Chances are that many of us in this room, we do not have good experiences with dating. And the only way for us to change those experiences is for us to be different, to be transformed, to view life, to view Jesus, to view others different. And I needed that time. I needed to be a changed man who was learning from God. And so don't be in such a rush to get into a relationship. Take your time to grow and mature. Okay, second, say things loud and clear. Say things loud and clear. And I would say this is where I really needed some help when I was dating, specifically Gretchen in college. I had my good moments, I had my bad moments, and this very well may be the most confusing part of dating. The different labels we give, or the way that we communicate or don't communicate with someone that we may or may not be interested in. Okay, there's just very little communication. So we have these terms, hanging out and talking, okay? These terms have been around for a while, right? If you walk up to somebody and you say, hey, I've noticed that you've been spending time with this person recently. Are you guys dating? No, we're hanging out. We're talking. What does that mean? I'm not really sure what that means. And there's confusion. And oftentimes, I will admit, it's the girl that's confused because the guy is afraid to say something. Okay? And so we want to get rid of confusion. There's nothing wrong with the terms hanging out and talking, as long as we understand what those mean. There needs to be clarity. Okay? So women, you have every right to ask the man that you may be hanging out with and talking to, what the heck is going on right now? What is this? What are we doing? Are we going somewhere? Are we just literally hanging out? Did we just go see a movie and then tomorrow maybe we'll eat a sandwich together? Like, I don't know. But what are we doing? There needs to be some clarity. But men, for those of you here, I am challenging you to step up and communicate something. Anything. Don't let there be confusion. Even if you get it wrong, it's fine. Even if you don't know what to say. Let me give you a pro tip. If you're scared, okay? If you're scared to say something, acknowledge the obvious. Hey, I have something to tell you that I'm kind of scared to tell you. Or I have something to tell you and I'm nervous. Just state the obvious. Tell them how you're feeling, and then tell them where you're at in the relationship. And then when you actually get to the point of where you decide to date, make it clear, hey, we're a couple. Like, I'm not interested in anybody else. It's us. Be clear. You don't have to get it right all the time. And this is where I did not get it right all the time. Okay? Let me tell you about Gretchen and I's first date, sort of date. Okay? So I got 2 tickets to this musical that I had seen in high school. And my parents got me tickets for it for Christmas. And it was like a dinner theater. And Gretchen did theater in college. Like, she did a lot of plays. She's really into musicals, into plays. And I thought, well, I'm not going to invite my best friend Brian Wiles. Like, he knows nothing about musicals, and he could really care less. So I thought, you know what, Gretchen and I have struck up a good friendship, and I'm going to invite her. So this was in February during the Super Bowl. And this play wasn't until after spring break. So we're on a spring break mission trip to Kentucky. And I start thinking, oh gosh, she might be confused that this is a date. Every aspect of the night was a date, okay? But I was not sure if I wanted to commit to a relationship, or I was not sure where I stood with Gretchen. So I pulled her aside. I don't even know where, it might have been on the roof, which bad idea. Like find somewhere, we were on a roof, I don't know. But I just told her, because I wanted to be clear, and I did not get this right all the time, but I told her, hey, just to let you know, I don't want this night to be considered a date. And I knew that she was crushed. She was crushed, right? But I just didn't know. But even though that was awkward to say, even though I was confused on where we were at in our relationship, I felt like it was important to tell her, communicate something. And then we went on this date, not date, and we had a meal, we saw a play, I bought her coffee afterwards. She was cold, I gave her my jacket. Everything seemed like a date. We kissed for a long time after, no, we didn't. Everything about the night seemed like a date, but I felt like I needed to be clear. A couple months later, we did start dating. And in those conversations, that when we were dating, we were having good conversations about what it meant to be in love, what it meant to have a good, healthy relationship. And I remember telling Gretchen, I have the intention of using this relationship to figure out if we are going to marry each other someday. And she had the same intention. And I told her, I am not going to tell you that I love you until I am confident that I'm going to marry you. I'm not going to use those words. So when you hear me say that, you can be confident that this is where we're heading. Okay? This is so embarrassing. So we're hanging out one day. I'm tired. I'm like half falling asleep. And I just say, I love you. And immediately I'm like, oh, crap. I did not mean to say that. And of course, Gretchen heard it loud and clear. She's like, did you know that you just told me that you loved me? I said, yeah, I didn't really mean to say it. So guys, don't be afraid to make mistakes, okay? That was terrible. Terrible. And I think a few months later, I ended up looking her in the eyes when I was completely wide awake. Listen, I probably could have just said at that moment, yes, I love you. But it just seemed like the wrong time where I was half asleep, and I should have been a little bit more beautiful moment. And so a few months later, I did tell her that I loved her. Be clear. And don't be afraid to make huge, drastic mistakes. Okay? It's inevitable. It will happen. Oh, man, I'm going really far over, guys. We're going to keep trugging along, though, okay? You stay with me, all right? Next thing, keep your friends close. Keep your friends close. You know who is really bad at evaluating things when it's left to ourselves? Ourselves. We are really bad at evaluating things. In a dating process, if we're moving through a dating process, and we're not just sitting in the status of being in that relationship, if we are moving through a process, we need the wisdom and the benefit and the interest of other people around us. Proverbs 19 says, listen to advice and accept discipline, and at the end you will be counted among the wise. You still need your friends after you're dating someone. You can't abandon them. You need their input, their wisdom, their advice. All right, last one. This is the one that nobody wanted to get to. Sex, self-control, and honor. Okay? This is where I'm going to turn this message into a real bummer. Okay? This is where I just say, don't have sex before you're married because God said so, and many of you are going to leave here ticked. Okay? The question is why? Why is that the standard? Because there are good, valid reasons why God says, I want you to hold this relationship in a certain way until you get married. Why? Okay, I want to read you 2 verses very, very quickly. It is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality, that each of you should learn to control your own body in a way that is holy and honorable, not in passionate lust, like the pagans who do not know God, and that in this matter, no one should wrong or take advantage of a brother or a sister. Next verse. Flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a person commits are outside the body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. So there's quite a few lies that I think we are told about sex. The first one is we can't control ourselves. We were made to do this. And that is a half-truth. We were made. God designed sex. We have been naturally designed to have a sexual relationship with someone potentially in our lives if we get married. But we also can control that. That's what these verses are saying, that we can control our own bodies. We have that ability. And then the other one is that sex is harmless. The other lie that we're given is that sex is harmless. It doesn't hurt anybody. You can have sex with somebody and it's not going to have repercussions down the road. But this is the only reason that is true. This is the only reason that many people believe that. And I've said this so many times throughout the years, is that sex has become more about an act that we do rather than a person we are with. It becomes an activity instead of a person that we're with and that we're looking in the eye and that we're experiencing the most intimate aspect of human relationship, physically intimate. I don't believe it is the most intimate experience that you can have with someone. It is the most physical intimate experience you can have with someone. But we've turned it into an act instead of a person that we are with and that we are responsible to take care of because they are valuable and they are created with honor, just like you are created with honor. God has created us with dignity and value. And he has made all of our bodies with dignity and value. So it was designed, the body was designed for the possibility of sex, but only under the circumstances of where you're sharing that with someone who you're married to, who has vowed to treat you with the highest honor. That's why sex is reserved for marriage. I think one of the coolest stories that I've heard recently is I have a high school friend that got married later in life, and I was actually talking to his mom a couple weeks ago on the phone, and she was kind of giving me some details about how he met this girl, and so they went on vacation to Italy, okay? And he just locked eyes with this woman, and they started dating, and I was just like, if you knew this guy, it's like, of course this would happen. Of course you'd go to Italy and meet your future wife. That makes total sense. But they started dating, and even though she lived in Italy, she was an immigrant to Italy. And she was an immigrant from a culture that has very high honor within it. How you treat elders, how you treat the daughters of a father. And so she came here to the United States, and the mom was saying, she was telling me how she communicated with her very grown son, who was like 27, 28 at this time. He's allowed to make his own decisions. But she communicated to him, hey, we need to get this right. And so if you think she's going to move in with you, you're wrong. She's going to live with us. Because our whole goal in this is that we send this woman back to her father, how she came to us. And I was like, how beautiful is that? Like, how honorable, not only to this woman, but how honorable to her family, who holds a high value of honor in their culture. I think we really need to adopt that here. Like, as we follow Jesus, do we honor the other person that we are with? I know that seems weird. It seems old-fashioned. It seems like it just isn't possible. But does it? Is our alternative just to keep doing the same thing that we're doing and causing destruction as we move through relationships? That's the alternative. We don't change anything. It doesn't seem to be working to me. So are we going to commit to valuing the men and the women in relationships when we get into a relationship? Now, real quick, for those of you that have crossed that line already, there is no condemnation. In fact, I want you to go back and watch a talk that I gave a few weeks ago. It'll be on YouTube. Just look up H2O Toledo. There's something that Jesus says to a woman. He says, "There is no condemnation. Now go and sin no more." I want you to go back and watch that talk. Okay, we got to finish up here. Dating is not a status we sit in, but it's a process we move through. So would we commit to going through that process and looking through all the things that we talked about this morning? Let me pray. God, thank you that you love us enough, that we have honor and we have dignity and we have value. And God, that we want to get dating right. We want to get it right. And many of us have felt the confusion and how lost we are in it, and that's okay. It's okay if we fumble our way through it, but it's important enough to try to get right. And so I just pray that you would help us journey in that. God, that we would seek relationship with you just as aggressively as we seek a relationship with another person. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.